Hello and welcome to my driver of the weekend video for the Monaco Grand Prix, the series in which my big old data algorithm decides the driver of the weekend based on the practice results, the qualifying results, and also the race results. There is, of course, varying weightings across each of these sessions. Now, I have also made a very big, significant change to the algorithm, and a video will be coming out slightly later today, which I'll probably link in a card in the corner once it has actually come out, which you can go and look at said changes. I have since added 2 new categories to the overall race category, so we are up to 29, maybe 28 off the top of my head, and then the overall scoring of exactly how these values are worked out is now changed. I have since run back the first 4 races through this new version of the algorithm, as we are adding up all of the season scores as well, so there is not a selection of 4 races that use the old version, and then the selection of post races that use the new version. Everything now uses this new version instead. Now, the secondary aim of this video is to compare the data algorithm outputs, which just look solely at all of the data, to my opinions that I made on Sunday, and then also to your guys' audience opinions as well, which I asked you to make on that Sunday video as well. I've given you a couple of days to post the responses in the Google Docs form that was in the description down below. I have then chopped off the top and bottom 10% of each of the results, as lots of people like to give every single driver 1 and every single driver 20. So with all of that riff-raff out of the way, let us jump on into the driver of the weekend for Monaco and quickly go over the driver of each session. So we start with the driver of practice. Now, this only accounts for 2% of the driver of the weekend score, so it's not overly relevant. But it is Lando Norris that leads this from the 2 Alfa Romeos, and then Nikita Mazepin had a decent practice session. But interesting to note, Lewis Hamilton down that order along with Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda as well. And now swiftly moving on into the qualifying driver of the day, which accounts to 28% of the overall driver of the weekend. And it was Max Verstappen who was declared the qualifying driver of the day. Remembering that 20 is the maximum score you can possibly achieve, and 0 is the lowest possible score you can achieve. Then it was Charles Leclerc who put it on pole, but inevitably crashed in qualifying. Then Giovinazzi getting into Q3, Norris ahead of Bottas, then Gasly, Sainz, Vettel, Stroll, Hamilton in the middle, just above Perez. And then from qualifying, we take a look at the race driver of the day. Now, this accounts for 70% of the overall driver of the weekend score, the most significant weighting, and it was Norris who was declared the race driver of the day, just 0.1 of a point above Verstappen. Then there was a bit of a steep drop off to Valtteri Bottas, even though he retired due to no fault of his own. Then it was Gasly, Vettel, Sainz, Perez, Ocon, Russell, Schumacher as well up there. Then Stroll, Raikkonen, Alonso, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Latifi, Mazepin, Giovinazzi and Tsunoda, with Leclerc scoring nothing. Now, there is an almost equal 50-50 split between teammate performances and your own individual performances, and one of the most significant changes to the algorithm overall is there is now a more significant weighting to your own individual performances. Those account for 70% of these individual scores, and the performances against your teammate only take up 30%. So there is now a higher weighting to how you performed against yourself, against your own averages across the whole season. Now, I don't really want to delve into too much of an explanation, as that is made in its own separate video, as that does deal with things like DNFs, mechanical failures, etc., as well as explaining all of the other categories. Then throwing it back to the data, we can compile all of these values. We take 2% of the practice scores, 28% of the qualifying scores, and 70% of the race scores. And it is declared that Max Verstappen and Lando Norris were joint driver of the weekend on 18.4 out of 20. Then Valtteri Bottas, Pierre Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, Sainz, Perez, Ocon, Stroll, Russell, Raikkonen, Hamilton in between the 2 Alfa Romeos with Giovinazzi just behind, then Ricciardo, Mazepin, Latifi, Alonso having a shocker of a weekend, then Schumacher, Tsunoda and Leclerc at the back. Now, by all means, feel free to agree/disagree with this order that my algorithm has popped out in the comments below, and also make sure to watch that explanation video, as that does provide justifications for each of the categories and the way that each of the ranks are scored, so hopefully you can better understand how exactly the algorithm works. Now, I am also coming up with some more alterations that I can make, and I'll probably make those at the summer break, and again, I will run it back through all of the previous races to make it more and more optimized as the season progresses. But now we're going to compare the data algorithm ranks to my opinion ranks and your guys' audience opinion ranks as well for the Monaco Grand Prix, and then where we stand as a driver of the season so far. So taking a look at the data-derived ranks that are on screen now, this is them ordered here, with Max Verstappen and Lando Norris being joint first, then Bottas in P3. Comparing those to my opinion ranks that I made on Sunday, we had Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez at the top, who was joint with Sainz and Norris with 17 points. Then Vettel, Gasly, Bottas, Stroll, Ocon, Giovinazzi. A very mismatched sort of comparison to the midfield, with a sort of semi-right lower half of the field, but again, not really right at all. I mean, I say right like one of these is actually the correct and most true order. That doesn't really exist. The orders themselves are simply just different. But now let's take a look at your guys' audience responses. Now I've averaged these across all of them that have come in, and you declared that Max Verstappen had the best weekend from Lando Norris, which is what my data algorithm popped out. Then Carlos Sainz, the same as myself, and then Sebastian Vettel as P4, Valtteri Bottas P5, then Gasly, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Ocon, Russell, Raikkonen, Mazepin, Latifi, and Hamilton. Me and yourselves both rated Hamilton quite low down the order, whereas the algorithm actually popped him a little bit higher up than us lot. Then Alonso, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and you voted Schumacher to have the worst weekend. But now adding on these scores from the Monaco Grand Prix to the 4 previous races to take the driver of the season, for the data-derived ranks, that has popped Max Verstappen as P1, 91.2 out of 100, and then just 3.2 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris as well, then Stroll up in P4, Valtteri Bottas, George Russell equal with the Mercedes man, having an exceptional season, then Carlos Sainz, Leclerc, Schumacher, Gasly, Raikkonen, etc., with Alonso, Latifi and Mazepin at the bottom. Then my summated opinion ranks has Max Verstappen in P1 as well, from Lando Norris from Lewis Hamilton. So the same top 3, just in a slightly different order with very similar scores. And interestingly, we also have the same bottom 4 as well, with Alonso really struggling. Then Latifi, Tsunoda and Mazepin for myself. Then comparing them to the summated audience ranks, you guys have also put Max Verstappen at the top from Lewis Hamilton, but a more significant points difference of 7.3. Then you have actually averaged out Sainz to be P3 ahead of Norris and Leclerc. Then Bottas is in that same sort of top of the midfield, but not quite branching it to the top bunch of people. Then we've got Perez in the middle, and then again all the way at the bottom, we all shared the same 4 drivers at the bottom: Alonso, Latifi, Tsunoda and Mazepin. And there we go, there is the end of the driver of the weekend video for the Monaco Grand Prix. What exactly my data algorithm has popped out for the driver of the weekend, and then how that compares to my opinions and also your audience average opinions as well. If there is anything that you disagree with or want to comment on, then please let me know in the comments below, and also make sure to watch that 3-part video series where I explain and justify each of the current categories used, and then also the video that comes out slightly later today in which I explain all of the algorithm changes. There is also a Discord down in the description below if you want to keep up to date with any of the latest news from myself and talk to like-minded motorsport fans as well. There's a lot of people in there at the moment where we just discuss generally everything. But that's all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.